Hello and welcome to Being Crisis Prepared, the business continuity podcast from Inveroy Crisis Management. This is episode 7 of our monthly podcasts and you're very welcome to join us. I'm Matthew Wardner and I'm joined today by my colleague
Toby Ingram. I cannot believe he's 7 months older than when we first started doing this.
Yep, and rumour has it that if you're listening, you are at least one of two. No, I joke. We're actually enjoying a growth in numbers, and so you're very welcome to join us. But please do spread the word, because the more people that join and listen, hopefully the more resilient our business world is and our lives are, which is to the good for everyone. So, without further ado, today we wanted to talk about 3 key topic areas. Firstly is the issue of tariffs and what that might look like, and the impact that has and to a changing landscape, thinking in particular of America's tariffs on a number of Scottish goods. We're also going to look at the Royal Mail strike that's coming up, and we're going to look at the impending beast from the east Mark II that we're advised is looming this winter. We're going to finish with some training observations that we've picked up in our travels around the world over the last month that we think will help you as perhaps a business continuity manager or emergency response professional or health and safety professional to think about how to get the message across to your team and become a more resilient business. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Toby this time to kick off. What topic would you like to start with?
I think we might start with the Royal Mail, if that suits you.
That sounds good.
Okay, so the reason this story caught my eye, and there's a very good BBC News article from the 15th of October, is that we focus quite a lot on horizon scanning, where we're advising and assisting clients to look ahead and work out what might come and how you can best exploit an opportunity and avoid a threat. Quite often that requires a risk decision because you don't know what is coming. So the client will need to take a decision. They either are going to spend some money to prepare themselves for an opportunity or a threat, or they're not going to spend the money, which is a perfectly reasonable decision. In this case, of course, we don't think this is coming. We know this is coming.
Right.
Because the Communication Workers Union turnout at the strike ballot was 76%, which is high.
Which is high, yeah.
110,000 people. And 97% of them voted in favour of a strike. So the strike happened.
Yeah, that's so pretty overwhelming odds for an election.
Yeah. There's clearly a powerful and compelling reason for this strike. The grievance is that an agreement last year in 2018 to raise pay, to reduce weekly hours from 39 to 35 by 2022, and to reform pensions is now perceived as not being honoured by Royal Mail.
Okay.
So pass on whether you agree or don't agree with the strike. That's not the issue here. The first point is that, as I say, you now know this strike is coming, and the most likely periods for it are Black Friday and then the run up to Christmas, because that's where it will have the most
greatest
effect.
Impact. Yep.
So if you are either a competitor to Royal Mail in the parcel market, or you are a customer of Royal Mail, then it is very wise to prepare for these events coming.
Yep.
Because you know they're coming. Royal Mail have been kind enough to tell you, or Communication Workers Union have been kind enough to tell you. So to start off with, if you were a competitor of Royal Mail's, and incidentally Royal Mail claim that they have 51% of the UK parcel market, so there's a lot to play for here.
Yep, but that's 49% less than it was 20 years ago, I guess, when they were the only player in that market. So it's reducing, but you're right, that's still a lot of letters and parcels.
And of course, Royal Mail is no longer a national industry. The last phase of privatisation happened in 2015. So this is a private company.
Yep, just the same as DPD or Hermes.
UPS, Parcel Force, whatever it is. So if I were cynical and ruthless and in...
A businessman, you mean?
I was going to say a politician. But cynical and ruthless businessman. Or even just a competitive businessman with some common sense in one of those competitor industries. I would be shaping myself to take advantage of that strike. I would be looking at sourcing more vehicles on a short-term hire basis, quite a lot of them, quite short notice. I'd be looking at taking on extra temporary staff. I would look for extra processing facilities, because the thing the defining feature of the parcel market is the sheer volume of stuff.
Yep.
So you need a big premises and it needs to be well set up. And I would be thinking about all of the short-term special deals that I can offer, because when the Royal Mail parcel delivery service stops, I want to be in a position to attract as many of those customers as I possibly can, and then to keep them.
Yep. And you want, if you are, let's call it ABC Parcel Force,
Yes.
you want to have as much of that 51% share. You want more than DPD, you want more than Hermes, because you're only interested in your business ABC parcel delivery, not someone else's.
Absolutely. You're playing for 51% of a big, big market.
Yeah.
So this is almost a game-changing decision. And of course, the strikes will probably be quite short-term, so you're not going to get all of that 51%. But if I were a competitor business, I would be setting myself up to take as much of it as I can handle without any drop in my levels of service. So I won't overwhelm an existing depot. I will look for an expansion depot, more staff, more vehicles, but critically, fantastic short-term customer deals.
Yeah, it's two observations there. Firstly, all those things that you said you need to put in place are all things that should be in your business continuity plan. Anyway, so what happens if we lose our X? Well, that's the same as now I need, instead of 1X, I need 2X. So I need to activate my business continuity arrangements for a limited period. Oh, this sounds familiar. So that I can make maximum use of the extra work is exactly the same process as you would do for a business continuity to go from back up from 0 to 1. Well, no, we want to go from 1 to 2. It's the same leap in capability and potentially the same time frame that you're doing it.
Yep.
And you want to be able to do it in a way that delights your customer.
Absolutely.
Because for them to change from, oh no, we've always been with Royal Mail, and they do a great service. Oh, well, hang on a second, they're now not doing a great service, but it's awkward to change. We recognise that. So why don't we help you in that change process by giving you a discount during the early period, or assuring delivery times, or whatever it might be, tracking capabilities to make it easy to say yes.
Yes, absolutely. And neither you nor I have anything whatsoever against Royal Mail. We don't take sides in the dispute because we don't know enough of the detail, and clearly both sides will give you their version of the truth. We're not telling people how to disadvantage Royal Mail. We're saying that in business, if you see an opportunity coming, and it's a big opportunity, there's a lot in play here, it would be a strange decision if you didn't set yourself up to take the maximum possible advantage of it. And in this case, it's coming.
Absolutely. And this is such a good example of, all too often in resilience planning, you're seen as a negative figure on the balance sheet.
Yes.
Oh, we've never used this. Da, 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 da. No. Well, this is the other half of that same equation. This is the bit that says, no, if you've got it right, it is a business enhancing growth tool to say, no, we know where we can get extra people from because we've written the job specs, we've got a call-off contract with an agency, we've got a detailed property spec of what we need, we know that we need X number of desks, chairs, whatever it might be.
Absolutely.
And therefore, and we've got a contract in place that says we can do it in 2 days. Well, hang on a second, we've got 2 months notice for this one, so it should be a piece of cake to do it.
We've got the IT in place, and we're set up.
And we can try, I guess you can also, because of the nature of a strike, and it doesn't matter whether it's Royal Mail, it could be anybody, but for that short-term duration, you can turn around and say, it's a chance to try it, and you're also trying your business continuity procedures.
Absolutely.
And if you actually keep 2% more business, well, you've not lost anything. You've gained 2% of business, and you've tested out all your business continuity backup systems in a hot environment rather than in an exercise environment. This is
absolutely, and 2% of a market this size is
worth fighting for.
It's non-trivial.
Yeah.
So if you are, on the other hand, a business that relies heavily on large volumes of parcel delivery, whoever you use, first of all, if you're using Royal Mail, and this is really interesting, don't post on the 3 days before the strike, thinking that you'll get stuff in before the strike. All that happens is a backlog builds up, and your parcels are at the bottom of the pile because you post them 3 days before the strike. Post everything 2 days after the strike, and then your parcels end up on the top of the pile and they get processed first.
Okay.
Don't become the bottom layer of a mountain of parcels. Royal Mail are likely to make strenuous efforts to continue wherever they can using temporary staff. And last time there was a strike, they actually got managers out of the office driving around doing parcel deliveries. What they will focus on is special delivery. So warn your customers, first of all, this is coming, and say the best chance of continuing to get deliveries on time is to go special delivery. Here is the cost. And many customers will absorb the extra cost if they're going to get their parcels on time.
Yep.
There will be, as we said earlier, alternative providers out there, DPDS, DPD, UPS, Parcel Force. So drive a hard bargain here. They're going to want your business. So if you're a large volume mover, press hard to get as good a deal as you possibly can. And you may find that if you've got that right, during the period of the strike, you will actually cut some costs because they will be desperate to get your business.
Yes, especially if they can tie you into a year-long contract or something. Yeah.
Do be prepared to play a little bit of hardball there. Encourage your customers to bundle up their orders so that makes courier shipping worthwhile, which is another avenue that you can go down. A really interesting point here that I found when reading this is tell your customers there's a strike coming, because as a simple consumer, it may not have registered in their head that this strike is on. And if they're continuing to get junk mail through the door, which they will be, there's no physical sign of a strike.
Yep.
It's not as though you get no mail. Stuff still comes through your door. So tell them the strike is coming. Keep telling them and tell them what the effect will be. Either we're going to have to go special delivery or things may slow down a little bit, but we'll try to keep everything going as well as we can. And if you are a business that relies on a high volume of incoming deliveries, think through how you're going to do that if the organisation that's delivering to you is badly affected by the strike. So are you going to run out of critical supplies because they're delivered by Royal Mail and they may not arrive, in which case find yourself an alternate supplier. So it's very interesting to look at this from several different perspectives. First of all, of customers. Secondly, from competitors. And thirdly, I suppose, on the to be brutally blunt about this, and please don't conclude that I am in any way preaching against the Communications Workers Union, because I'm not. But if there are lots and lots of players in the market, and the players are pretty good, otherwise they wouldn't have survived, if you go on strike, there is a chance that you will end up simply driving customers to another supplier. The market can get pretty angry with you. And we live in a world now where people's mentality is one of phone and drone. So I phone up for something, or I order it on my mobile phone and a drone drops it off. I therefore expect things the next day, if not the same day.
Yeah.
And if Royal Mail say, well, we're not providing you with that deliveries, that parcel service for 2 days, 3 days, Black Friday, Christmas, many, many customers will feel no brand loyalty whatsoever. They will just go to the next best supplier.
Yep.
And therefore, I would question where the union believes this might end up, because
it's an impossible.
It's no longer a national industry going on strike and bringing the country to a halt. Royal Mail is an entirely privatised company in a very competitive marketplace where there's a lot of other players.
Yeah.
And if you say, right, hands up, we've had enough, we are not going to deliver anybody's parcels, anybody, everybody, lots of customers will say, fine, I'll just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's, that's
the whole challenge of the union bargaining power, isn't it? Of where does that sit? But that's probably a topic for a different podcast.
I think so. So there are three perspectives. We looked at that event, which I stress we know is coming.
Yep, and really interesting from looking at it from the opportunity angle that all too often we gloss over. But in this case, if you were a DPD, a Hermes or whatever, there is a chance to go, okay, for 2 days we're going to go guns out for this and try to delight new customers and test our business continuity procedures. Well, what's not to like? Okay, interesting topic. So the next one that we wanted to just have a quick discussion about, really, and conscious that it's been in the news quite a lot, is the battle that's going on over tariffs between the EU and America on the issue of Airbus and support that allegedly the EU has provided to give Airbus an unfair advantage, and the US now fighting back with tariffs on a range of goods across the EU, which in the UK appears to have manifested itself in particular in Scotch whisky, Scottish shortbread, and cashmere. And you sort of go, okay, well, so what? The actual total package is $7.5 billion worth across Europe of tariffs.
And our little slice of it in the UK.
Well, Scotch whisky alone export market is £1 billion, which is, if you are, sorry, and this is a sweeping generalisation, but an awful lot of Scotch whisky requires to be made in the countryside, and jobs in the countryside are already hard to come by, especially good quality jobs that actually produce good quality products. Almost a national emblem. Scotch whisky, it's a flag carrier product, absolutely. Yeah. Well, if you're £1 billion and you're now, that market is being challenged, if you made 26% profit, now 25% of it is, you're left with 1% profit. Is it worth the effort of doing all that sales and marketing and really difficult challenge? And therefore, it's again that horizon scanning piece of, hang on a second, this is Airbus. What's it got to do with Scotch whisky? No, you're part of business, and you are therefore swept up in something that is completely out with your control, but you've just lost your market. And
it's coming, and that's the key point. Of the threats to business are loss of people, loss of premises, loss of IT, loss of supply chain, or loss of market.
Yeah, and that loss of market here, yes, Asia is a huge market for whisky, probably bigger than the States in some regards. But you can't just suddenly switch and all your product that was going to America goes to Asia unless you've thought about it through and so on. So it's a disruptive type that is not actually that easy to work out how to do something about, because it requires different levers to your normal disruption. This is almost crisis management. What are the communications measures that you need to put in place? Your marketing tools to say we're worth that extra 25%, or do you take the hit on your bottom line and your profit is eroded?
And if your profit is eroded, so what?
Yeah. Do you then suddenly go out of business? Do you just say, in fact, we're not going to ship to the States, we'll leave it in the warehouse, and our 20-year-old will become a 25-year-old?
Which will sell for a lot more in 5 years' time.
And can we weather the storm until then?
And there are other things that you can consider as well. So if you take a global perspective of this and understand that Alibaba is that little bit bigger than Amazon.
Right.
There's a huge thirsty market for Scotch whisky in particular, but authentic UK products with a strong history in general.
Right.
And Scotch whisky fits absolutely into that category from Alibaba customers.
Okay.
There are a number of German firms who market Scotch whisky through Alibaba. The number is 25, there or thereabouts. How many Scottish firms do you think market Scotch whisky through Alibaba?
I'm guessing almost none.
Two,
okay.
Because culturally and emotionally, we don't face that way.
Mm-hmm.
We face west towards the American market.
Yep.
So
special relationship and all that. Yeah.
If I were trying to open up a new market for Scotch whisky or develop a new market for myself, for my own business, the McInveroy.
Yep. Fine name.
Malt,
yep.
Absolutely. I would first of all go to a specialist Chinese trading advisor, of whom there are a number in the UK, who help to smooth the path with things like customs and exporting to China.
Yep.
I would make it as visibly authentic as possible, so all of the history that normally comes with a bottle of malt. But there are other things that you can do with it, and if you can tie in, if there's a Chinese let's say we use the Chinese market as an example. If there's a Chinese link which is tied inextricably to authentic, non-knockoff products, then it's a very, very powerful seller. So if you think about the silver decanter collars on a silver chain,
Yep.
I would consider having those cast in the shape of a dog, if you're in the year of the dog in China, because that's a powerful, powerful thing.
That extra little something that differentiates your product.
Absolutely. I would have UK hallmarks on the back of the silver decanter label, with a history of the hallmarks, because that gives you the authenticity, and a little bit of Chinese engraving on the back of the dog with perhaps your name in Chinese. And if you can set yourself up to offer authentic, personalised Chinese Scottish link and go through Alibaba, I think there's a big market there. And at the moment, we, the UK, don't really exploit that market to its full potential.
Okay.
So in the midst of lots and lots of black clouds, there's potentially a silver lining there. And that's, again, the opportunity you should be looking for.
Yeah. One of the other things I picked up looking at this tariff story was that the cashmere challenge.
Yeah.
So it's 25% on cashmere, Scottish cashmere products. Interestingly, not on Italian cashmere products. Both members of the EU. So sometimes these, it doesn't seem as though it's equitable. So again, how do you spot that? Clearly the Italian cashmere producers are going, cheers, easy, thanks very much, because that's one of main competitor is now disadvantaged.
Absolutely.
So it's it's an interesting mix, and I think it's been lost a little bit in the news under the weight of, or the volume of shouting about Brexit as a whole, but the impact on the Scottish industry is pretty dramatic. And the shortbread industry, you can Google Walker's shortbread, and there's an article there talking about they have had a bad year. A challenging year, profits down 60%, despite the fact that turnover is up because of the cost of butter. It's a unique recipe, all butter shortbread. Well, to keep the unique recipe, and you're using butter, and butter price goes up, you can't change the recipe, because then you're changing your unique selling point. You can get any shortbread, but it's not Walker's. It's not Scottish shortbread.
Scottish all butter.
So if you want that, when the price changes, it squeezes you. You then stick 25% on tariff. It's a challenging time to be a business, and therefore, from a business disruption point of view, this is. How do you work that? Is it a supply chain issue because it's butter? Well, there is no alternative to butter if it's a butter shortbread. So how do you face that challenge? And there will be dozens and dozens of industries, clearly not shortbread, but in a similar position, that they rely on a unique ingredient, and that therefore they are victim to, if that ingredient changes
in price, in nature, in supply,
then their marketability changes with it. And how do you set yourself up for that? Again, it comes back to horizon scanning or doing your business continuity. What is our prioritized thing that we need, our raw material? Right, where can we get that from? Can we tie ourselves into a 5-year price deal, so that we set some, we nail some of these factors down, and therefore we're not quite as vulnerable to the vagaries of the market as we might ordinarily be, perhaps. But it'd be interesting if there is anyone out there with a greater knowledge on how the whiskey, the shortbread, or the cashmere industry prepares for this type of thing. Delighted to hear from you.
And of course, many industries and many businesses, if they see a problem like this approaching, whereas the habit for many years has been outsource, it cuts your costs, it cuts your administration time, and all of that is absolutely correct. If a situation like this approaches where something has smacked your profits by 60, did you say 60%?
Butter has cut profits by 60%. Yeah.
See, that is a massive hit.
Yeah.
Massive.
There may be other factors involved in that as well, but I think butter is the largest of those.
Do you consider owning, sponsoring, buying your own dairy farm?
Yeah.
because if the bottom's falling out of the milk market, and farmers are struggling to sell milk, and many of them going out of business, do you go to somebody who is local or in the UK and say, I'm going to require this much butter, which I think you can make? How about you and I do a long-term deal? So I order so much from you per month for 6 months, so you've got some projection capability, and you can then jump onto the advantages of that, of we support local businesses, etc., etc. Now I know there are environmental issues with large-scale livestock farming, but that again is probably the subject for another podcast. But if wherever you're getting your butter from, if that supply is threatened and it's a supply, it's an element that you cannot do without, you have no control over the price. So maybe you buy yourself some price control by buying your own farm.
Yep, and it's, again, there are many industries where they take that step because that gives you a perhaps guaranteed is overstating it, but you are master of your own destiny much more than the vagaries of the market.
Extent.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so that was me on tariffs. We were going to touch on plastic straws, but I think we'll save that for another day as well.
Okay.
So, Toby, what was your second?
The second
topic?
the second event that we strongly suspect is coming is the 2019-2020 Beast from the East.
Okay.
So University College London, who have a very good weather centre, have studied sea temperatures and weather systems and conclude that extreme weather for the UK is likely, with a freezing vortex of Arctic air expected to hit the UK in the next 4 months, which will make the temperatures plummet, and the prime window they're looking at the moment is 24th of January to the 1st of March. And it looks like it could be up to a 4-week disruption, so longer than the last Beast from the East. Therefore, we would advise businesses, watch the weather forecast so you can see it coming. Study, are either your locations or your activities likely to be adversely affected, and plan for 3 to 4 week disruption. That's things like minimal manning, extra fridges, generators, extra fuel, freezers and heaters. And most businesses will quite rightly tell you that the people are their priority. So if you think about a 4-week disruption, you will obviously identify your essential outputs, processes and activities, and then the people who are critical to all those three. Decide whether they can continue to deliver from home or do they absolutely need to come into work. Some jobs can be delivered with an IT connection from home. Rehearse and think through how and when you're going to send people home early. Prepare those who can work from home to do so with software licenses, and make a plan to minimize your travel for 3 to 4 weeks. Check if your suppliers are going to be affected by extreme weather, and if they are, look for alternatives. Check you can still dispatch goods. Have a proper fine-tooth comb of your insurance policy, and model your cash flow against a weather disruption of 3 to 4 weeks. Again, you know it's coming.
Yep, and we're conscious that we covered this in our last podcast. So if you've heard this before, we make no apology for it, because we are trying to get a message out as wide as possible that we spend an awful lot of time as businesses preparing for a fire. And we have fire drills. We practice them on a regular basis. We test the fire alarm, sprinklers in, smoke alarms, and all the rest of it. Despite the fact that actually fire is quite a rare event in a business. When a bad weather incident happens, wherever it might be in the world, it affects everybody. You take the Japanese sad loss of life as a result of their
earthquakes,
typhoon.
Yes,
Typhoon
right.
last weekend before, 10 days ago or so. That was being predicted
floods.
Days in advance. All the talk about is the Rugby World Cup and the Grand Prix going to go ahead? What's the impact on life, etc. So we know these things nowadays are coming, and we can do something about it. Therefore, for those who live in areas where there are now extreme weather events, it just makes sense to go to monitor the various forecasting tools that there are, and do something about it, just as you would do to monitor your fire risk. So you have your appliances tested to make sure they've got the right fuses, etc., etc. You know there's a risk, you do something about it. We know there's a risk of weather, but all too often we're then surprised when people can't get into work and schools close, etc. No, that is going to happen. And in Scotland, where we're recording this from, historically it happens almost every year because we're in northern country, northern European country. It gets cold in winter. There is no surprise, and therefore people are very ingenious at how to get to work and how to keep working. But as a business, we ought to take that into account. So that was that topic. As I say, just a reminder that we've been there before, but it is particularly relevant on the back of things like the Japanese experience in the last few weeks. So we wanted to finish today with just a brief discussion on some of the activities that we've been up to and things that we've learnt on our travels. So the first one that we wanted to have a think about is the idea that when you're trying to deliver training, how do you get to the stage that people are not just in the room, but they're properly engaged and they're taking on board the information in a way that they will remember beyond the moment that they head home to their families? How do you do it so that in a week's time that they go, oh yeah, I remember that, and I know what to do. And I know that there's a famous quote, and I'll now get it horribly wrong, but effectively it says, tell me and I sort of might remember, and show me and I'm quite good at it, but let me do it. And I'm now I understand. And the Army, British Army, use a thing called EDIP, explanation, demonstration, imitation, practice, and it's always the practice bit that drives home that skill. But something that we picked up in our recent experience is this idea of, if you can write something or explain something in a way that it is a life skill for them as an individual, that they can take home and enables them to protect your family better, help you with safer travel, not just for you as a business traveller, but for your family when you go on holiday. Your fire drills in the office aren't just for the workplace in the office, but you can take that to home, so that there was much talk a few weeks ago about the idea of a grab bag at home. Well, when you go back to the reservoir, Toddbrook Reservoir that we talked about a few months ago, and the fact that people were evacuated instantly from their home, didn't have any time to do anything. If they were away, they weren't allowed back. Right, so if you've got 10 seconds to grab your stuff as you race out, what do you grab? Yes. And okay, the Police Scotland advice was things like torches and so on. Well, okay, maybe, but certainly a set of keys, phone charger, passport, laptop, whatever it is that has all your scanned photographs in, because emergency events in the office, you always talk about, you don't have time to prepare for it. It's an emergency. It happens instantly. Well, at home, it's the same idea. If your next door neighbour has a fire, the flat above you springs a leak, and water comes flooding down into your flat, gas explosion, yada yada. There are so many different examples, but we're not very good at preparing for it. And so we just picked up that when you're trying to communicate a skill that you want someone to use in the office, reminding them that this is a skill that is quite useful at home is a good way to do it.
One technique that's always very useful, I think it's absolutely right. I think another thing that you can consider is your point that I hear you say quite a lot, which is emergency response, business continuity, resilience is not something that's done to you. Yep. It is something that you do.
Yep.
And if you can persuade people that that is the case, then they will get much more engaged. And unfortunately, in almost all cases, you need to use rather more stick than carrot. So we would be advising clients to enter business continuity tasks on people's objectives for the year, on their job specs, attach them to bonuses if you are a business that pays bonuses, and get them into the bloodstream. So if you have a risk register, risk being both threat and opportunity, You've identified a potential threat and you've said, in order to reduce the level of that threat, we're going to do X, Y, or Z, pre-mitigation. Then always put a date by when that action is expected to be complete, a name by whom it is expected to be done, and then force them to sign it.
Yep. So
And
they've
then-
actually got skin in the game.
Absolutely.
There is a scratch on a piece of paper that, oh, you're right. I can't hide anymore. You did tell me, and I did agree to it. Yeah.
And in your reviews, your meetings, whatever it is you have in your rhythm of business, I would be saying 2 weeks before that date is due, just have a chat with the individual who signed the piece of paper and saying, remember, you're responsible for delivering this. And in 2 weeks' time, I'll ask you to explain publicly how you have done it.
Yep.
Not that you intend to do it, or not it's a great idea. I want you to tell me how you have done it. Then if people are being asked to stand on their two hind legs and actually talk to other people and, in a way, sing for their supper a little bit, that brings it home to them and makes sure that they listen when it comes to business continuity. So it is something that you do, it is not done to you.
Yeah, and it's something that the Business Continuity Institute's good practice guidelines makes a play at as well, this idea of having objectives and constant theme throughout is top management buy-in. Well, if the top management is going to have a meeting that says, okay, let's review where we are with these actions that we all agreed we were going to do, and in public forum you're going to have to stand up in front of your peers and say, terribly sorry, but I didn't do it. It's quite an incentive for an individual to actually burn the midnight oil and get it done. But from a business perspective, this idea of business continuity, nothing ever happens, nothing ever goes wrong until it goes wrong. If you're thinking, well, my performance bonus, performance indicator, my potential for promotion, all the things that matter, i.e. my non-business life, are impacted by my ability to hit a target. Could be a turnover target or a production target, whatever. Well, if there's a disruptive event, there's a risk then that I'm not going to achieve that target. If I've got a plan in place that enables me to get back up and running quicker, well, that's going to help me hit that target. So why would I not want to have a plan in place that is going to make it more likely that I'm going to earn my bonus or meet the targets that I need to hit to keep my job, or on commission, or whatever it is that you do. So I think there are several sorts of messages there, but yeah, that line of emergency response is something that you do, not something that is done to you. So many times we find departments that couldn't be bothered to turn up to the training, and they rely on the emergency response manager or the business continuity manager to tell them the answer.
And if he's not there the day the emergency happens?
But all emergency response managers are incredibly talented.
Clearly.
But they are not the financial expert in the company.
No.
They are not the HR expert. They're not the legal expert. They have an understanding of what good looks like, but it has to be owned by the department to have that solution. Whether it be what is force majeure, can we use insurance for this? What do we do with an evacuee reception centre? I don't know, finance department, legal department, what have you put in place that I can support you with, but you, the department, own the output that enables us to recover that capability or the interdependencies that finance support production or whatever it might be. If you just wait there to have the answer spoon-fed for you, and then just shrug, well, that really isn't adding value and helping, and that's a moment to have a look in the mirror and say, am I cruising in my job, or am I part of a forward-thinking team?
Indeed.
And
it's about your business continuing to operate.
Yeah, and looking surprised when you're then made redundant because the company's gone bankrupt as a result of a disruptive event that everyone thought they could handle. Well,
or indeed as a result of a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
If you become the only shortbread maker that has a reliable supply of butter at affordable prices, that's a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
If you're the first Scotch whisky distillery to really get into that Asian market, perhaps via Alibaba and a Chinese agent, then as long as you're first, you're going to be increasing your success levels. Why would you not want to do that? And the history is littered with businesses who saw their markets disappearing and did nothing about it.
Yeah. So that's us hitting the 40-minute mark. So I'm sorry to say that's us for another month. As all our listeners will know, there's an awful lot going out in the big bad world that is covered in the news, is covered in newspaper articles and so on. If there's anything out there that you're uncertain about or doesn't make sense, by all means drop us a line at the email address of bcp@inveroy.com. It would be great to hear from you, and we can include it in next month's podcast. But that's us for now. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much for listening. Speak to you next time.